The image is of a man standing in his living room, smiling and posing for the camera. He is wearing a brown hooded sweatshirt and making a peace sign with his hand. In the background, there are a few skyscrapers visible, suggesting that he might be located in an urban area.
That is crazy. Holy shoot. GPT-4 is believed to feature more than 1.7 trillion parameters, which, if you do the math, means you would need hundreds of gigabytes of VRAM and likely over 100 CPUs in order to run it yourself. What is this, Egyptian cotton? Because that's a lot of threads. But I want to know what we can do with more humble means like this Raspberry Pi 5 that sells for just $80. No doubt GPT-5 and Google's Gemini models are sure to be great, but what's the state of the art when it comes to open source, free, small language models like Orca and Phi? Are they practical for small computers? And can we accelerate their performance with Coral AI Edge TPUs? Now, I've been doing big things on small tech for almost a decade, but this endeavor of deploying local LLM-based chatbots on the Raspberry Pi is undeniably the pinnacle of that journey. The tech is truly impressive, and the implications of these kinds of jailbroken LLMs are definitely worth thinking about. So my objective is to test every major LLM available, including private GPT, which I'll train on local documents in this external SSD, working our way all the way up to the new hyped Mistral7B and examine how this model is so fast and capable at such a small size. Now, if you don't have a Raspberry Pi 5, no worries, you can follow along with most any SBC, mini PC, or even personal laptops. Now, I'm going to be using the new Raspberry Pi 5 with 8 gigabytes of RAM running the 64-bit OS. I'd also suggest getting some fast storage in place. I'll be downloading dozens of models, each around several gigabytes, and micro SDs are pretty slow, so I'm going to use this fast 256 gigabyte micro SD. But you can even use external SSDs or even NVMEs for even better performance. And I'll add a step-by-step guide in the description below, so if you missed something, don't worry. Now, I wanted to use LM Studio, but it doesn't appear to run on ARM architecture yet, so that didn't work. But there's a great new tool called Ollama, and it provides a similar functionality. It allows you to download, test, and swap major LLMs by running them from the command line. So we have our idle Raspberry Pi 5 right here. It is wired into a power detector so we can observe the power draw as we go. And then on the right side here, we are connected to the Raspberry Pi over SSH. I have a command line on the left, and then I am just tailing the resources using htop on the right. This Raspberry Pi has no internet connection right now. It's 100% private and off-grid offline. So normally this site would return ICMP traffic, but because there's no internet, it is unable to do so. So we're gonna be running these models completely locally. So I wanna start with a model called Llama, which claims to be able to analyze images. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna wanna do is upload the selfie that I just took to my Raspberry Pi. So I'm gonna do that using FileZilla. Should be able to just double click it, and there it goes. So now if I come over to Warp, on the right, I have htop open, so we're monitoring the resource utilization. And now we can see that there is the selfie image, so it's on the Raspberry Pi. Okay, so now the model is running, so we can pose our query. So I'm gonna say, what's in this image? And when I kick this off, we should see the power go up, we should see the fan turn on, and we should see the resources bump up.
The image features a man standing on the edge of a pool in front of high-rise buildings, most likely in Miami or another big city. He appears to be posing for the picture while standing near the pool with his hands rested on his chin. In the background, there are several cars parked and scattered around the area. The scene captures a casual moment with an urban atmosphere.
Yeah, it's just crazy how accurate this is and how it got my city, my posture, all the ambient objects in the image. It's just super impressive. Okay, let's run Llama 2 uncensored. Write me a dangerously spicy mayo recipe.
Ingredients: 1 cup mayonnaise, 2 tablespoons yellow mustard, 2 teaspoons hot sauce your choice, 2 pinches of cayenne pepper, 1/2 teaspoon chili powder, 1/2 teaspoon garlic powder. Instructions: 1.
So yeah, that's a pretty solid recipe right there. It even gives you instructions of how to prepare it. So Llama 2 is a great general purpose model. Okay, so let's run some of the smaller models. Let's start with Phi 2. So I'm gonna do Ollama run Phi. All right, let's ask it a little historical trivia. Who was the Venezuelan president in 1980?
The Venezuelan president in 1980 was Carlos Andrés Pérez.
Okay, let's do some coding stuff. So give me the Linux command to delete folder cursively.
You can use the rmdir command in Linux to delete a folder recursively. Here's in sudo rmdir path to folder. Replace path to folder with the path to the folder you want to remove. The sudo command is required because it allows root access to the system for this operation. Consider a hypothetical scenario in which you are an IoT engineer.
Yeah, I'm going to say it's rambling at this point. All right, I'm going to give it more of a softball. Why is the sky blue? So one thing I will say about this model is it's definitely one of the faster models. All the models take some time to think initially, but once they start going, I would say they start going at a pace comparable to what I could read at. So they're pretty fast.
The sky appears blue due to a phenomenon known as Rayleigh scattering. The Earth's atmosphere scatters sunlight in all directions, but blue light is scattered more than other colors because it travels as shorter, smaller waves. This scattering of blue light is what gives the sky its blue color. Additionally, the sun is positioned directly above us during daylight hours, which further enhances this effect by making the blue wavelengths more prominent.
Sounds right. All right, let's try another small model. Let's do Orca. So Ollama run Orca Mini. Okay, so a lot of people ask about languages, and as far as I can tell, they're designed to be used in English, but that doesn't mean that they don't understand or can help you with translations. Translate this sentence into Spanish. I love creating intelligent computers.
Estoy amando crear inteligentes computadoras.
Again, the smaller models are decent. They're pretty good. Definitely usable, definitely practical, and faster than the other models. But let's now use some of the more capable and better performing models. So let's go with Llama 2. So Ollama run Llama 2. All right, let's see how it does with basic facts. Who was the US president in 1952?
The US president in 1952 was Dwight David Eisenhower.
All right, let's do some code stuff. Write me a Reddit-like time decay function in JavaScript.
Here's an example of a simple time decay function in JavaScript.
I use GPT-4 on a regular basis. This feels a lot like GPT-4. It gives examples, few mistakes, uses modern ES6 syntax, provides explanations, not too long, not too concise. This is a really good model here. All right, let's run code Llama. Explain the concept of async await.
Async await is a programming construct that allows developers to write asynchronous code that is easier to read and maintain. It was introduced in ECMAScript 2017 used to handle the results of async operations.
All right, so this is a fantastic answer. Full explanation, callback hell, code example. So this is really solid. Let's do another one. Give me a Linux command to print the current time every 10 seconds.
You can use the sleep command in Linux to print the current time every 10 seconds. Here's an example of how to do this. While true, do date plus %t. Sleep 10. Done. This will repeatedly print the current time using the date command, and then wait for 10 seconds before printing the next time. You can use this in a shell script or directly in your terminal.
So Code Llama is excellent for code pairing and referencing for any sort of developers. But I'm curious, can we run a 13 billion parameter model? All right, so we're gonna try to run the Llama 13B model. All right, so it looks like it won't run the 13 billion parameter Llama 2, which I guess makes sense based on memory requirements. My understanding is that you need about the same The number of parameters, you need about that in gigabytes of RAM as a loose estimate. Like for instance, if it's a 7 billion parameter, you should have 7 gigs of RAM, I have 8 gigs of RAM, etc., etc. With these open source and free models, our interactions are 100% private. Many of the models are uncensored, and additionally, costs are reduced since they can run on more household hardware. This process also begged the question of whether we could accelerate the model inference using an edge TPU like the Coral AI, but it looks like for LLMs, the process is bound by VRAM, and the Coral TPU only has 1 gigabyte of RAM and 8 megabytes of SRAM, which isn't adequate for running even the smallest LLMs. It also got me wondering if we could run these effectively on a cluster of parallelized Raspberry Pis, but it doesn't seem like there's any open source projects to enable this. Here's another fun use case. What if we wanted to train our model on files in an external drive? Well, we can actually do that using private GPT. Okay, so I did want to show you real quick private GPT. I don't think I'll have time to go through the entire installation here, but it is in the full blog tutorial in the description if you want to pick that up. But the gist is I have a directory called source documents, and you can put PDF files, text files, whatever you want in here. I put a free biography of Susan B. Anthony in here, and I trained the model on that, right? So now if I back out and I run private GPT, I'm gonna do Python privategpt.py. Essentially, we trained the last layer of the model on the source documents, so I can start posing questions around the source documents, and it will answer in a chatbot type way. What was Susan B. Anthony's primary mission? Okay, so now you can see it starting to respond here. Susan B. Anthony was a prominent social activist who focused primarily on women's suffrage, and it will also cite its references throughout any of the documents that you supplied. So this is how you talk to your documents. So let's try another model. Let's try the Mistral7B. They claim to be the most capable 7 billion parameter model. Okay, so we have Mistral running. Let's start asking some questions. So who was the second person to step on the moon?
The second person to walk on the moon was Buzz Aldrin. He followed Neil Armstrong, who was the first man to walk on the moon during the Apollo 11 mission on July 20th, 1969.
All right, let's ask it some Spanish. ¿Qué tal?
¿Qué tal is a Spanish phrase that translates to "how's it going?" or "what's up" in English. It is often used as a casual greeting or way of asking someone how they are doing.
Write me a rhyming poem about semiconductors. Pretty sure my Raspberry Pi is gonna blow up on this one.
In a lab where the brilliance does flow, creations emerge both new and old. Silicon Valley's heart beats fast where semiconductors hold the past. Transistors small with power to gain and circuits complex, their role is sustaining. Voltages high, amperes in tow, they dance together in an electric show. Microchips intricately designed with logic and memory, they're aligned. In microprocessors, they compute solving problems that once seemed mute. Born from silicon, pure and bright, pushed to the limit with endless might. Semiconductors in their endless quest unlock the secrets of this technological feast. As technology marches on apace, they power our world with grace. Through phones and computers, they've become a staple, a testament to human ability. In a realm where science meets art, semiconductors play their part. In this ever-evolving digital age, their importance can't be assuaged.
But you can still see it's really impressive, particularly for a model that's not optimized for literature. So Mistral7B wins the award for me. It's my personal favorite, and it's really impressive. And I actually didn't know this, but a very astute viewer on my last video posed an interesting question, noticing that if the model has the broad strokes around most historical questions, then does that mean that the model contains the entire world's knowledge? And the answer is actually yes. For reference, the entire corpus of Wikipedia is about 22 gigabytes, so it makes sense that these small models probably contain about 25% of the top significant information. And for me, what's so interesting about this is that hypothetically, if a catastrophic event occurred and the internet cut out, I have a dozen or so local LLMs that have all of the world's history about language, science, and practical how-tos, which could be a game changer for the preppers among us. It's like having your own local private AI in a box. It would even be pretty entertaining when you get bored, you can just talk to it. The strides in this space have been super compelling, and I think there's a case to be made that in the future, LLMs might run primarily on the edge. For more interesting videos, check out this next video. Thanks.